welcome to howtodrawandpaint.com. My name is Bob Davis and I put together 3 videos on painting watercolour trees because it's a subject that I know worries an awful lot of people, whether they be summer trees, winter trees, or what we're going to look at today, the sort of middle distant and far distant trees. We don't need many materials. Well, 3 colours: ultramarine blue, burnt umber and yellow ochre, a couple of brushes and a single piece of Bockingford watercolour paper. Right, remember the colours I mentioned a few moments ago? Ultramarine blue, burnt umber and yellow ochre. Well, I actually painted them about 5 or 10 minutes ago, and you can see how much lighter they've dried compared to the same strength of colour that I've just put on, and it's still actually wet. Okay, so there's an important lesson. Always put your colours on and mix them stronger than you think you're going to need them. Here's a number 10 round brush. As you can see, it's got quite a large body of hair, or the belly as it's called, which holds a lot of paint, but it also comes to a nice point, so it'll give you the ability to make quite fine lines. Let's have a look there. There's the width of the brush, or you can scrape it sideways like that, or you can draw quite a fine line with it. This little chap here, which is a rigger, and the rigger is so called because it was invented by artists quite a long time ago to paint the rigging, the fine lines on ships, but it's ideal for drawing branches and twigs and what have you, as well as being able to be used as foliage. This is, as you can see, you get down to some very fine lines like that, and you can start pulling out branches like that. But you can also use it to create foliage. You know, we've almost got a tree. That didn't take long, did it? As you can see, I've painted a simple watercolour sky on this, starting with ultramarine and moving down to yellow ochre. And incidentally, if you want to find out how to paint a very, very simple watercolour sky like that, have a look on the website under the watercolour painting section under painting watercolour clouds. Right, now I've got a very pale blue-grey mixed with the blue and the brown, and I'm just going to start about 2/3 of the way down the paper, and it's just a general sort of, you can see hopefully the point of the brush is just dancing across the paper here and there, and just not too even, not too consistent. You don't want those sort of, what you don't want is that sort of situation like that, as it starts looking too precise and too contrived. The next layer that we're going to put on is, while this is still a little bit damp, but it's going to be a much stronger mix. That's it. And look at this. You see the way we've put this strong mix on, and already it's soaked into the damp paper and almost disappeared. Okay, I'm going to put some yellow ochre next with a little bit of blue added to give a pale sort of yellowy feel. That's yet another layer. It's still a little bit damp, so I'm going to wait for that to dry a little bit more. That's better. Now you can start to see there's a hit and miss effect appearing. Tree trunks and branches, these little holes in the trees. Right, I've just scraped in a few more topmost branches using the side of the rigger. Again, taking a strong dark mix of the blue and the brown, is to start painting the trunk of the tree. I'm going to do 2 different ways of doing these middle distance trees. This is the first one, I suppose the logical way, where you actually do the trunk first and then you develop your branches. Like this. What I'm doing now is actually creating these smaller branches at the edge of the tree. And it's great fun, this, because this is where if you've got a slightly shaky hand, then it actually works to your advantage. The only problem is I'm left-handed, and I tend to find that I get left-handed trees. And don't worry if you're left-handed, it's not a peculiarity amongst us left-handers. People who are right-handed have the opposite problem, because what you find is that you tend to want to end up having your trees with all your branches here, and it's actually quite difficult to go against the grain, so to speak. Remember, you don't want every single twig represented. But you can see here, as I've gone across the church spire, it firmly puts that way back in the distance and brings that tree forward. It tells the viewer that that tree is very much in front of the spire, and indeed in front of these further background trees as well. This tree is going to be a little bit bigger. You can see there, I'm scraping the side of the brush. Just going to go back, and I want to try and vary the proportion of colours I put on, so you get a bit of interesting texture of colours. The mix is quite strong, and there we are. I'm painting the tree trunk up and into the leaf clusters. You can see that what I'm starting to do now is to paint these leaf clusters and join them up with a few twigs. Now then, before I forget, a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to bring the tree trunk down here. Tidy that up in a second, but I just want to get it so it appears to flow into the ground or grow out of the ground. Oops, that's a bit dark, but no problem. I know what we'll do, turn that to our advantage, just blot that out. Okay, if you don't like it, just blot it out. That almost looks better than when I was trying to paint it. Very handy thing is a piece of paper towel. You can make clouds with this if you have a look at that painting cloud video, and you can get all sorts of textures if you put too much paint in, or in this case you can wipe things out. Meaning that the light is coming from the right. Well, I am now anyway. Okay, now you can see, I hope, how that's pulling a nice sort of light effect. Just let the brush dance around, and don't forget, here it's a three-dimensional thing, the tree, so there'll be some branches coming out towards you. Never be afraid to use strong colours. Frighten yourself to death with them, because they'll always dry lighter with watercolour. Oh, we're using neat ultramarine blue there. The dark blue, incidentally, these darker colours are very good at defining, if you wanted to define the shape of the ground, folds and the hills and what have you in the ground. So don't be afraid to use these dark colours. Okay, I'm just finishing off here with a little bit of a zigzag path, just to lead the eye down in between the trees and generally towards the spire of the church. It's just a little doodle. Yeah, the picture itself is not much more than a doodle, as well as the value hopefully of showing you certain techniques. We'll just finish this off by putting, I suppose, the obligatory little fence. There we go. So there we are. I hope that's been helpful to you. And remember, there's two other videos on painting summer and painting winter trees that you find both of them on howtodrawandpaint.com, and you'll find plenty more on painting tips besides. So do keep coming back. Cheers.